I was very honored to receive the invitation for being here, and not just for the fact to be a speaker, but rather more for the topic. Not many people here know, but I actually wrote a book about this. And it's not a book about forgiveness and forgetting, but it's an integral part of the story. I wrote that book when I was only 23, 24 years old, and it was published in Italy by the largest Italian publisher at that time and still, and it was also republished. Parts of that book were read in saloons like this, and by the time I received an invitation to go there and be a part of the saloons, the war ended, so I basically thought that it's much more important to come here than go and play a VIP in Milano and the other saloons. Not many people know what really is in that book, but it's a different story of the war. I call it war. Our international friends like to call it conflict. And conflict is what I used to do with my Serbian friends in the street. I grew up in an interesting neighborhood in Prizren, which is the farthest corner of our empire, which was one of the few where the majority were Serbs. Only my family and the family of our landlord were Albanians. And in the street I was the only Albanian kid. All of the rest were Serbs. But for us, we were only children in the street. This is how my book starts. We were only children in the street. We had no awareness that we were different, that I was an Albanian or they were Serbs. And being scientifically correct, the first language I learned is probably Albanian because it's my mother tongue. But by the time I became self-aware, which is like 4 or 5 years old, I fluently spoke both languages. So technically speaking, I don't remember which language I learned first. I basically know that there was a point in time where I spoke fluently both of them. I was speaking Albanian in my home, whereas in the street with my friends, I was speaking Serbian. And most of the time I used to spend in their homes because they had better economic conditions, they had stuff that we did not have. That was actually what made us different. But I used to eat cakes with them. Serbs had this tradition of making cakes when we were used to make flias and stuff. So I more liked cakes than I liked flias. And then 81 started, 82 was the time when things started changing. And by 83, 84, my father said that we can no longer live in this neighborhood, so we have to change neighborhood. But my friends, Darko and Sreten and some other guys, were still my friends. Even though we changed neighborhood, we used to run into each other. And we used to talk, and I knew them more than I actually knew some other kids which I went to school with. And from time to time I used to go and visit my grandfather in a very traditional Highlander village, because my mother was a city girl. She liked a boy from the village, but only with the condition that he continues living in the city. So my father had this issue that from time to time I need to go to a village and sort of realize that there are certain things that I need to know about my origin. It was a conflict father and mother. So if my mother wanted me to speak Turkish, my father was deadly against it. So when I went to the village, I could read Serbian, also in Cyrillic, and my cousins, elderly people, used to call me and said, read to us Politica, and I would read Politica, it was a big newspaper still, and I would translate it to them. And in a sense, I was a celebrity, because I spoke the language fluently that others did not really could speak. But my grandfather had a serious issue with this. My grandfather was a very serious guy, and had a different view on things. So one day he calls me, and says, let's go for a walk. And we went to the hills of our village. And there is one thing that is very intriguing in that particular part of Kosovo, is that you have graves every 200 meters. People were buried at the site that they were killed. So it's a long history since 1912 of endless conflict with the Serbs.